And welcome everybody to the last meeting of the Climate Change and Nature Recovery Service Transformation Committee for this municipal year. Before we kick off with the agenda, just want to alert you to some changes to the agenda. So due to a technical issue, the report that you've had circulated under agenda item 4 is not the correct version of the report that we were due to receive. And it is important, obviously, that we have the right information in front of us. So what we're going to do is we're going to withdraw that report. We have got Chris Howell with us to give us a verbal update on the future waste strategy, and we'll have opportunity for questions. But then we will defer the recommendations from that report to a future meeting in the next municipal year. So just to let you know of that agenda change. So first of all, have we had any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, apology from Councillor Oliver James.
Thank you. Are there any disclosures of personal or prejudicial interest from anybody? Yeah, Councillor Rice.
Yeah, it's just a personal interest. I mentioned it during the year, so it's relating to 5, and that's just being a member of staff at Pembrokeshire.
Okay, thanks, noted. I can't see any others, so we'll move on. Hopefully you've all had a chance to have a look through the minutes from the last meeting. Are we happy that they're a true and accurate record? Can I have a proposer? Yeah, Sarah, thank you. And Hannah seconding. Thank you very much. I'm happy with those. Lovely. So then on to agenda item 4. So I'll start, if I come to you, Councillor Anderson, to introduce Chris and this item. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to thank the committee for their invite this afternoon. And secondly, I'd like to thank Chris for putting together the agenda. Sadly, it's the incorrect one, so that's why we're going to pull it. So I'll hand over to Chris now to give you a verbal update on the waste agenda.
Thank you. Over to you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've been to the committee twice before and progressed our work on the waste strategy through the help of the committee. And there's 3 areas that I wanted to give feedback today on. One is the seasonal garden waste trial that we ran through the winter period. Secondly, to give the committee an update on where we are with the, again, trials to run the collection of additional materials at the curbside. And thirdly, the reusable containers, which again we've brought through to you a couple of times, to give you an update on where we are with their rollout. So taking the seasonal garden waste collection first, through December and January, we trialled stopping garden waste collections. It's by far the quietest time of the year for people putting garden waste out, and it's a very busy time for other waste streams. So it enabled us to redirect resources to those other streams for their collection, particularly over the Christmas period. We also did run a collection of Christmas trees towards the very end of January. And again, there was a very low take-up of that service, but that's given us information to enable us to make decisions going forward. So as feedback, consideration is now going to be given to whether the cessation of garden waste collection to the winter period continues. The trial went very well, so we will be putting a further report together to look at how future cessations of garden waste collections could look at going forward in terms of start and end dates and any further mitigation that we might need to put in place. Also, to maximise the free up of resources, going forward, we would look to isolate garden waste on its own as a collection material, which would mean then putting or collecting food waste along with garden waste on the same lorry. So then if we had a future cessation of garden waste collections, that would free up those vehicles and crews to help out with other waste streams. So that is the trial that we ran and the direction of travel going forward. In terms of collection of additional materials at the curbside, we've said before that we would look to run trials to make sure that the collection of materials is viable in terms of where there's a market for the recycling, and whether or to determine the quantities that residents put out, and to make sure that their collection is manageable within our operations as well. In terms of the materials that we're looking at plastic film, cartons such as Tetra Paks, textiles, and potentially small electrical goods. In terms of feedback, we are in discussions with Welsh Government over trials that they potentially will run in the autumn around collection of film in particular. There's certainly no guarantees yet, but we're in discussions and we have volunteered to be considered as one authority to take part should those collections proceed. But that will be a decision for Welsh Government to decide how they want to proceed with that trial. If we're chosen to trial the collection of plastic film, we would look to see whether we can piggyback on that and add in the other materials I spoke about onto the same trials at the same locations. And I think it's really important that we, whilst we're thereabouts with the this year's 70% Welsh Government target, it's always important that we strive for continual improvement. Then lastly, reusable containers. We had a very successful session last time with yourselves, and as a direct result of that, the design of the containers changed in terms of we've now added lids to the cans and glass container because members were concerned about potential spillages. We've been awarded a grant for their purchase by Welsh Government. So now we need to run the procurement through to award, purchase the containers, and then start their rollout over the coming months. It's a big authority, so that rollout will take several weeks, indeed a few months to roll out fully, because we need to do it in a way which is manageable for the level of staff we have in terms of delivering containers to every household as well. But that is great news and is testament to the support the committee has given us in developing this element of the strategy. So those are the three items that I wanted to give some feedback to the committee on, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chris. That's really, really great to have that update, and really good news about the Welsh Government funding on the reusable containers, because I think that's something that this committee has really meaningfully contributed to. So thank you for that. I got indication from Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chris, for the update you've given there. I think it's all very positive in terms of the changes that have been put in place and things that are proposed. It's good, as the Chair just mentioned, to see that there's a grant backing up the containers. There are a couple of things in terms of the future waste strategy I think are quite important to look at. I floated an idea at the beginning of, I think, the last municipal year about waste in terms of endocycle, the opportunity for a business development related to using the food waste for soldier flies. I know it's been done by some London authorities to make into fertilizer, which gave them quite a good financial return on waste collection. So I think it's still certainly something worth looking at. I know that we have a good relationship with the people down in Bridgend and what we're burning at the moment. I think it's really good that we're looking at other forms of collection, and it'd be great if September we can do film, as we were talking about, because that's going to be good. And it's good, we'll probably be cutting back about 1 million plastic bags, or 10 million, even better. I underestimate it. I think a key thing, though, in terms of the future waste strategy is resourcing and staffing, because we seem to have a continuing issue for the last couple of years now of not being able to collect all of our waste on time or the allocated times to do it. And what that has led to is obviously more resources being used to clean up any waste that's been spread around the streets. So I do think we really need to get that right, alongside bringing in these new waste stream collections, because at the moment in certain areas of the city it's just not working and it needs to be improved.
Okay, thanks. Did you want to come back to that, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's always key that we get the right balance of resource, and you know, we need to, we have a structure in place which we feel is fit for purpose, but undoubtedly there are times when we get vehicle breakdowns or we get absence levels, which mean that sometimes we have delays in collections, and it is far from ideal. So as we move to reusable containers, for example, we need to review our resource levels, and I think we also need to take account any current level of miscollections in that reconsideration of our resource levels.
Thanks, Chris. I don't know whether you wanted to comment on the food waste suggestion as well.
I just have to be honest, we haven't had time to explore that yet, but it is certainly something, you know, we need to explore all options. Currently, our food waste goes to Stormy Down in Bridgend, where we have a joint contract with Bridgend for this anaerobic digestion. So where the food waste is effectively composted to generate a biogas for generation of electricity, and then the liquor that's left is used as a soil improver on local farmland. But I'm more than happy to explore new technologies. Things are going to change all the time, and we need to move with any new technology. At the moment, though, unfortunately, there's so much going on. There's only so much teams can cope with any one time. But I'm more than happy to explore that.
Thanks, Chris. Are there any other questions from any committee members? Looking online. See any? Oh yeah, Councillor Baker. Sorry.
Not one. About the garden waste collection during the Christmas, have we seen? Do you find there was a lot of savings within not collecting the garden waste from, say, December and January, February? Did you find that know what I mean? People up our way weren't putting the garden bags out. We did spread the news once they knew no garden waste was collected, and they realised, oh, I don't put much out anyway. So I was wondering how much we have saved with the lorries going around, how much we saved within all, know what I mean, the emissions and everything. I think we saved a lot, really. But your point of view is more than my point of view. This man knows more than me.
There we are, Chris. Can you give us an indication on that one?
Yeah, well, it's really good to hear that the local residents found it manageable. Initially, on the first year of the trial, obviously the crews were still collecting food waste, so we couldn't put the lorries off the road. But what they did in the other side of that vehicle then was supporting the collections of other materials. So what it would have done is reduced our levels of overtime for catch up on some of that additional materials and additional tonnages over the busy Christmas period, and potentially it'll free up more resource again going forward if we continue with it, if we move the food waste to be collected with the black waste, and then when garden waste is on its own, those lorries and crews then would be totally available for other types of work, and indeed to reduce our reliance on agency staff, which I think is important to the authority as well. So limited savings in the first year, because the trial was to make sure that was to see what impact it had on the streets and on residents, and to make sure that the freeing up of that element of resource was beneficial in making the service more robust. And in future years, I think we can build on that, and I think then savings are more likely to come in future years to allocate to other waste streams and make sure that we're robust through those areas. And particularly as we move to the reusable containers, that'll save a lot of plastic bags, but it is a slower collection, so it needs more resource. So it is about shifting resources around the collection structure to make sure that we're as robust as possible and we stay as cost effective as possible.
Thanks, Chris. Could you just talk us through the isolation of garden waste? I think you described it as so, and the potential moving of one waste stream to This is why I need you to tell it to lay it out for us again, because I can't even formulate my question. Basically about, you know, what would the collection look like to the resident then if we did do this sort of switch on? What would week 1 look like and what would week 2 look like?
Yeah, if we at the moment, because food waste is collected on the same lorry as garden waste, when we stop garden waste, we still got to collect the food. So the benefit is helping with other streams that are out on that same day. Black waste is collected on its own at the moment. So what we would look to do would be to swap garden and black around. So we'd collect food on the same lorry as the black waste, and then garden would be isolated. The change for residents would be that effectively those two materials would swap weeks if that's the direction of travel that the authority takes. So on pink week, you'd put out plastic, food, and garden instead of black. And on green week, you'd put out your cans and glass, your paper and card, then you'd put out black and food instead of garden and food. So it's the same number of waste streams being put out. That there would be a shift, a rotation of weeks for those two materials.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. I've got Councillor Rice indicating again in the room, but I saw Councillor Lawson was in first, so over to you.
Hi, thanks, Chris, for the update. I was just thinking really about the point you made about the resources, the intensity of resources for distribution of the reusable plastic containers when we get them, and that wasn't something that had occurred to me previously. I was wondering really whether you think it would be best done phased in a sort of ward by ward or smaller ward basis, or whether you think it is going to be possible to roll it out across the whole of Swansea in one go, which does actually sound quite ambitious.
Yeah, you're dead right. It would need to be phased, and the way we would do it would be to do it day by day, so that on a Monday week 1, we would roll it out to all the areas that are collected on Monday week 1. So then when we are changing our resources to collect the material through reusable containers, we're only increasing resources on the one day to start with. Then the rest of the week would be as normal. And once the one day is rolled out fully, we then maybe move to the Tuesday, and then we'd have extra resource for 2 days. So it would be in collection areas, not as wards, but collection areas, but phased, as you say, and that phasing potentially would take a few months to roll out fully.
Thank you. Councillor Rice?
Thank you, Chair. I must admit, I'm a little bit confused about the frequencies that we talked about in terms of collecting the waste there. You were saying that you wanted to align black waste and green caddy waste together.
Yes.
That's correct, isn't it? Yep.
Yes.
So are we looking to only collect green caddy waste every 2 weeks, or are we looking to collect black bins every week?
Yeah, I understand it's confusing. The collection frequencies wouldn't change. We would collect black bags. We currently collect it once a fortnight, and we'd collect food with black bags. On the opposite week, we collect food with pink. So the food is collected weekly. Both pink and black would be collected fortnightly. Currently, exactly the same happens with garden waste. We collect garden waste fortnightly, but the food is collected weekly. 1 week with your garden, the next week with your pink.
Yeah, that clears it up for both Councillor Rice and myself, so thank you, Chris. Councillor Keaton?
Apologies, it's just yeah. I was actually wondering about the compost. I notice you're selling it in bags. Do you still have enough for the parks and everything else? Do you use it all for that as well, and do you use it for hanging baskets and everything else? Because if it is, that's a really good saving.
Yeah, we don't compost. The compost that we sell is from garden waste, and all of garden waste goes to Carmarthenshire, a site in Carmarthenshire, and they generate compost, and they market. I think it's Merlin's compost. They market as. So effectively, our relationship with them is that they have our garden waste, and we have to pay for it to be taken away. They compost it. They bring some back to us then as bagged material. So it doesn't necessarily mean that our garden waste compost goes in directly to our parks. They're two separate operations.
Yeah, that's such a shame, because I remember us being able to pick up compost from
Yes.
Dear John. That was from there. Was that the same, or were you doing it on site then?
You're talking a few years ago now, Sarah. I seem to remember when I started, it was still available. It wasn't in Carmarthenshire then, I don't believe. I believe the contract we have with Carmarthenshire is newer than that. So I would need to check and come back to you on that, because we're probably talking over 10 years ago now since it's been available for collection, unfortunately.
Time's flown. Yeah, no, I was just wondering, because if you could do it on site, or you could do it in Swansea, it would make it a bit more than taking all this waste elsewhere and then bringing it back. It would make it a little bit greener. Is it I take it it's quite an in-depth process, not like compost bins then?
There's lots of different types of composting processes, whether they have oxygen or no oxygen, and you need to have a certain scale to do it effectively. And so the site in Carmarthen would take material from a few authorities to give it that scale.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris.
No problem.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other indications for questions from committee members. I just wanted to check, Councillor Anderson, is there anything you wanted to add before we move on to the next agenda item?
Just to what it says in the report, they emphasise the department's achievements, in the waste management, including surpassing the 70% of the recycling rate target ahead of schedule and providing cost effectiveness. We're looking at the proposed future strategy aims to further improve efficiency, to reduce carbon emissions and meet anticipated legislative changes, such as the potential to increase the recycling targets and set by the Welsh Government. Strategies to achieve the goals include increasing recycling changes in waste collections, methods, and exploring alternative low-emission vehicles. Last week, we've had 5 new vehicles delivered, so we've still got another 12 to come, which will be by the end of June, and then there's a further 20 to come for the end of autumn. Hopefully, they're going through procurement at the moment, so that is going to help Chris and the team and our operatives out there with the new vehicles. Will hopefully stop this missed collections because of vehicle breakdowns. So yeah, I think the future is positive, and let's improve on what we got.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
Thanks to you and to Chris for coming with that update. It is really good to see this moving in the right direction. So yeah, as I mentioned, we'll defer the recommendations to the next committee meeting, subject to any update from like the Welsh Government's consideration of the plastic film recycling. I imagine the recommendations will be the same, but just to make sure that we've got all the written information in front of us, we'll defer that until the next meeting. So we will move on then on the agenda to the annual report. So this is a standard agenda item at this time of year. I hope you've all had a chance to have a look at the report. It summarises what we've done over the last year as the committee, and subject to your agreement, it will go forward then to be part of a report that summarises all of the committee's work over the last year that goes to full council. Yes, Councillor Anderson.
Can I ask, do we need Chris online now?
No,
Because I know he's busy
Yeah.
with other things.
we don't want
Cheers,
to take up
Chris.
any more of your valuable time. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Chris.
Yeah, so are there any comments about the annual report, or are we happy to send it on as it is? Seeing nods or silence, which I take to be acquiescence. So that's great. We're happy with that, which means the final agenda item is our work plan. So we have successfully progressed through our work plan this year. There isn't anything left outstanding on that. So that's really good news. Thank you to all the officers, cabinet members, and of course yourselves for enabling us to do that. And with that, I declare the meeting closed.
Thank you.
Thank you.